Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our CAWASA Wednesday webinar. And today we are going to do webinar, I think this is webinar number 16 of the 2021 series. We had a break last week as we were running some little challenges, but we are back. And thank many of you who contacted me to inquire. It shows that, there is some interest and there's a good following. There are some people who are consistently following this webinar. And we want to thank you for your continued participation and support. And it must be that there are things that you're learning from this. So today we are going to look at, and it's up on the screen, our topic, but our guest, he is no stranger to CAWASA and the water utilities in the region. He attended Presentation College in Chaguanas, Trinidad in 1998-2005. And upon graduation, he won a national scholarship and pursued mechanical engineering at the Imperial College of London. And during his time in England, he worked at the Rolls-Royce Aerospace, which proved an invaluable experience that opened up his eyes to the global possibilities of engineering. In 2009, he completed his Master's in Engineering degree with first-class honors and returned to Trinidad. He started working at Qualitech Machine Services Limited, where he has been for the last 12 years, and now holds the position of Managing Director in charge of the overall vision operations of the company. He was instrumental in transforming Qualitech from a machining services provider to a full-fledged equipment asset management enterprise, covering everything from supply, installation, monitoring, and repair of all types of rotating and static petrochemical and manufacturing equipment. He has a passion for volunteering and has served in many positions, such as the Chief Operations Officer of the University of the West Indies Blood Donor Foundation from 2013 to the present. He has been president of the Alumni Association of Presentation College, Chaguanas, from 2012 to 2018. Caribbean Industrial Representative for the Institute of Mechanical Engineers from inception of the Americas Region Chapter, and has won a National Youth Award for Volunteerism in 2013. He has been a member of the Association of Professional Engineers since 2014, became a chartered engineer in 2015, and a fellow of the Institute of Mechanical Engineers in 2020. He's a member of the Caribbean Water and Wastewater Association, and he has participated in many of their conferences. And of course, when he does that, he also takes his family along. He's also an entrepreneur, co-founding a dental practice, DentaCare, online pharmacy, eFarm, and medical IT company, Three Stripes Tech. He enjoys spending quality time with his family and is passionate about philanthropy, technology, business, and continuous improvement of everything he is involved in. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you our guest presenter today, Mr. Deepak N. Lall. And
all right, thanks a lot, Mr. Shah.
Good.
So good afternoon, everyone. I see we have just about 15, 16 participants here. So we have a nice intimate session this afternoon. What I like to do is just generally give you a background of Qualitech so that you could understand the context in which we operate, and then we dive into the specifics, which would be repairing and improving pumps. So I will present, I'll try to keep it to 45 minutes to an hour, and then we'll leave some time for questions at the end. So please feel free to put your questions into the chat if you want to log it, or if you want to write it down, and we take them afterwards, right? So let's kick it off. So Qualitech, the agenda here is just a brief history, where we are located, the certifications, we hold an overview of the company and then straight into the equipment. So our company, Qualitech, started in 1995. It was actually founded by my father. Very humble beginnings, a small workshop warehouse, 2,000 square feet with 4 people. He would have started with just 3 machines. And basically, as time evolved, customers kept asking us or challenging us to do more and more. So we would have started off manufacturing simple parts such as shafts, bushings, those type of things. And then, it led to us overhauling equipment and even doing everything throughout the life cycle of equipment. So for example, we would supply, even engineer, supply, install, maintain, repair, and do diagnostic works on all types of rotating equipment. So we operate in the food and beverage sector, petrochemical, oil and gas, utilities, marine sectors as well. We offer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week service, and we've completed hundreds of thousands of jobs. So I mean, there's an old slide, so it says over 50,000, but it's quite more than that. The size of the company is just over 120 people. A lot of our employees are long-serving staff. All of our founding members of staff are still with us. We have over 100,000 square feet of workshop across 5 acres, which are 2 sites in the heart of the Point Lisas Industrial Estate. And we have a lot of various certifications, which I'll go through a little bit later. So just so you see a little Google map overview, that's our company here. We have 1 site here, and we have 1 site at the end of the street over here. And all of this is the world-renowned Point Lisas Industrial Estate. So Trinidad being one of the energy pillars in the Western Hemisphere, we are the largest producer of methanol and ammonia in the world, or at one point we were. And we have a lot of multinational companies here. So that is where Qualitech really got our experience with equipment such as pumps, motors, gearboxes, compressors, all of these different assets, because all of these plants would have them by the hundreds. And these are a list of all the companies on the right. There's just a picture of some of our infrastructure here. So, all the buildings, they will have overhead cranes and, quite a lot of machinery. Certification wise, because we have a lot of multinational customers, we have prided ourselves on operating as if we are an international player, because we have to compete with the same level of service as that you would have in the UK and America and other parts of the world. So that is one of the reasons we chose Lloyd's, one of the biggest insurers in the world, as our quality management system certificators. So we are ISO 9001 certified since 2002 by Lloyd's of London. So that's just about 19 years. We're the first SKF certified rebuilder of pumps in Latin America. So SKF, you would know, is a very popular manufacturer of bearing. They're a global company. We're the first authorized repair center for a company called Philadelphia Gear in the world. So they're one of the oldest manufacturers of gearboxes, over 100 years, 125 actually. And they would manufacture things like the gearboxes that would be on the crawler for the platform that would take the space shuttle to the launch pad, large Navy vessels and so on. Locally, we have something called STOW certification, which is a standard of safety and is mandatory for you to do work in the energy sector. NFPA, which is National Fire Protection Association of America. We are one of the few ESA accredited workshops in the Caribbean. So ESA is a body that is responsible for electromechanical repairs, such as pumps and motors. So we are the first accredited workshop in the Caribbean and South America. We also ABB certified. So ABB is a popular brand of motor. We are the one of the few, or actually the only service provider for motors. So actually doing service to motors in the Caribbean, and also WEG certified, which is a large motor manufacturer out of Brazil. So these are just pictures of all the different certifications. This one, we are one of only 13 outside of the US and Canada, and there are 146 in the globe. There's ABB certificate, WEG. There's another one for a company called MaxF, Philadelphia Gear, STOW. So a little more into Qualitech now. We have different divisions: industrial, we have manufacturing, distribution, engineered product sales and service, project execution and management, electrical division, where we repair motors, generators, and so on, and also rentals. So we do every single thing you could imagine to rotating equipment. So from your pump, your motor, your gearbox, engines, compressors, turbines, we would do everything from manufacturing parts to disassembling it fully, inspecting it, telling you what is wrong, refurbishing or manufacturing the parts, assembling it, and to some extent testing as well, so that you are sure that what we repair is 100% in working order before we send it back to you. The list is quite exhaustive, but some of the more interesting things would be like 3D printing, corrosion protection, fabrication on site. So we actually have the ability to come on site and machine things like flanges and skids for your different equipment, a lot of different things. So it's very little we cannot do when it comes to equipment. We have a lot of manufacturing capability, which I'll go on further into the presentation, where I can actually show you where we could manufacture impellers from a sample. And over here of interest, we have some of the latest technologies, which are 3D laser scanning, 5-axis milling, and abrasive water jet cutting. So you're literally cutting steel with water. Some of the brands you would represent, Ingersoll Rand, LED lighting, mobile compressors and generators, lighting towers, and a whole host of other stuff. Everything to do with, warehouse and building solutions. We're the agents for Bobcat in Trinidad and also different parts of the Caribbean. Project execution, you need labor to do a project. You want us to engineer a design for you. You want us to execute it. We could arrange all of that sort of project management. From a supply side, we do a lot of stuff in the petrochemical sector, valves, actuators, rotating equipment, process equipment, heat exchangers, a whole host of stuff. Instrumentation and controls. You want remote vibration monitoring of the equipment so that you don't have to physically go out there to see what's going on with your equipment. What it helps is that it feeds you back information so you can see if your equipment is high in vibration or behaving unusually. This is the electric side of the business, so we can repair motors up to 5,000 horsepower and generators up to 2,000 kilowatts. And that's full disassembly, inspection, rewinding, troubleshooting, you name it. We're quite capable of doing that. This is just to give you an example of some of the sizes of motors. This is close to a 4,000 horsepower motor, and this is one that was this is the same one that was completely refurbished, and this is just a shot of one of the motors that was burnt out, being rewound with fresh wire. We do specialized storage, so we have something called humidity storage, because as you know, the humidity is quite high in the Caribbean. So sometimes if you store products in a warehouse, even though it's sheltered and enclosed and even air conditioned in some instances, you still get rust developing. So we have special climate control storage facilities that you have what you call dehumidification, where you remove moisture from the air. This stuff, we went through already. This is the whole chain of where we fit in with regards to equipment. And we've also recently added on engineering to that, engineering design. So we've done a lot of work with all the offshore platforms, and we have a lot of specialized solutions, because I always like to tell clients that whenever we do something, we want to do it so your equipment lasts longer. We don't want to see the same equipment coming in for the same repair, because we like to recommend solutions. So that is something we're well known for. So moving on to the meat of the presentation now, improving pumps, motors, and other equipment. Qualitech could have completed thousands of pump and motor repairs for a lot of petrochemical plants, like I mentioned. We've done work in some of the Caribbean islands, such as Grenada, Barbados, Jamaica, Trinidad, of course, and Guyana. And some people might ask, well, why turn to the Caribbean for repair capabilities when you have the OEM? So a lot of pumps and motors and other equipment in the Caribbean, we would bring in from the US, the UK, parts of Asia. But one of the downsides of having the OEMs in these countries is that the lead times are long, because oftentimes spare parts are not off the shelf. Pumps and motors, they're sometimes very specialized equipment, especially when you're dealing with larger pumps and motors. So it's often very difficult to get a spare impeller or a spare shaft, spare bushings, and all that sort of stuff. So that is why Qualitech, we could actually reverse engineer parts. So if you give us a shaft that is worn, we could actually manufacture a new one from the old one. So we'll go a little bit more into that in the future. And this is basically to save time. Shipping time, as you know, is quite lengthy. Sometimes if you ship via sea, it can take 2 weeks to a month out of the US and the UK. And if you're shipping from Asia, it takes about 2 months if you're doing it by sea. So this is some of the reasons why Qualitech started into this kind of business, because the petrochemical sector is a fast-paced industry. Downtime is not tolerated at all, and everybody wants their jobs done yesterday. So that is a phrase we often come up against, and that is why Qualitech is outfitted with a lot of these global type technologies. This is often a sight I see when I go to different water authorities around the Caribbean. There are these quote unquote bad pumps and motors laying around. So when I see these things, I look at it from a perspective of the majority of this cost is in the wet end and also your column pipes. So if something is wrong with this, it may be something very small in the internals that can be fixed. So here we have 3 large assets or fairly medium-sized assets that have been rendered unusable. But I always encourage clients, if you think it's unusable and you're willing to ship it across to us, we can evaluate it for free and let you know if it's repairable or not. If it's not repairable, we can dispose of the asset for you. And if it is repairable, we can quote you and get your spares in a better position, because it would have been quite expensive to buy these 3 pumps here, and they've been laying in the yard for quite some time, as you see grass growing. So it's really about in these hard and trying times economically to make the best use of your assets, especially the ones that are in the laydown yards. And from these, depending on what it looks like, we can also create spares and create some redundancy in case you have emergencies with your existing equipment. At least you have a backup. So going in a little bit more into the presentation here, what I have done is I've selected certain parts or types of equipment and basically described what we do to sort of enhance it. So typically when you buy a motor, you buy it, if you can buy it off the shelf, that most likely will mean that it is a generic type motor. It's not specific to the application, unless you specify, you come into the Caribbean region, you have a lot of saltwater corrosion, you have a lot of salt in the air. And this is typically what we see from some of our clients. So the regular paint that the motor comes with doesn't withstand the Caribbean corrosiveness. So what we do for our clients is we would upgrade this paint job. So we would blast off all of the existing paint, which is, I would say, non-Caribbean friendly, and we would put something called a 3-part epoxy or marine grade paint. So this is something you can look at when you're specifying your motors for your different plants. Specify marine grade or 3-part epoxy, because it really lasts much longer, and you definitely won't end up like this in the long term. So that is just a suggestion. Types of bearings. So again, when you buy motors off the shelf, sometimes the bearings themselves are generic or not designed for the specific use. So when you look at your bearings, you really want something that is shielded or sealed. So a regular bearing would look like this, where the bearing balls or the inner race is exposed. So you get a lot of dust and debris going in here, which could potentially lead to failure over time. So what we like to do is upgrade the bearings for our clients. So when we disassemble the motor, we put in these shielded or sealed bearings. So they prevent contamination. So you get the lubrication inside the bearing remaining there. It doesn't dissipate over time, and you get longer life. Right? So that's another point for consideration. Another one we see quite often is you would have your fan guard. So on the motor, you will have your fan, which would provide cooling, and your fan guard is basically to protect the spinning fan from hitting anyone's fingers or getting caught up with anything. So over time, you get these fan guards being rusted, and people would normally buy an entire new motor, or they may get a spare one of these fan guards from the manufacturer. So what we like to do is modify it. So most of the times the housing will be good. We could actually, so this is one we've manufactured from scratch. So as you can see, it is made up of a roll sheet and then a tapered sheet. So we would have made this in-house, and the guard itself, we would have manufactured in a detachable manner. So for example, if over time the guard becomes corroded and then you get the mesh breaking up, you could actually remove this and reinstall a new one. So it saves you the hassle now of replacing the entire thing. And of course, we'd have upgraded the paint job here with something that is Caribbean friendly with marine paint or 3-part epoxy. We would also upgrade the fans on our motors to this different geometry shape, which provides better cooling. And then also we use an engineered plastic. So that way you don't have any corrosion as you would with metal fans. And it's also much lighter, so it's less load on the motor as well. These are some modifications we can do on terminal boxes, because sometimes you have large cables coming in with multiple cores and it gets quite congested in the terminal box. So we've had instances where we would have actually modified the terminal box and make it a little bit larger so that you don't have all these bends, because over time this could lead to cracks in your wire and then voltage supply shortages and so on. For vertical oriented motors, we actually improved the design by making what we call a top hat. So in your vertical type pumps, if you have heavy downpour, as we do in the Caribbean, especially during hurricane season, a lot of the water will enter straight through the fan. And if the seal between the shaft and the housing is not in good order, you find all of that water now rushing into the internals of your motors, which could cause damage and even burning. So to prevent a lot of this torrential downfall from going directly into the motor, we design a simple top hat here that will remove 80%, 90% of the water from coming straight into the motor fan guard area. Over time, we've seen a lot of failures where upgrades are being considered. So as you know, the application of VFDs or variable frequency drives is one to conserve energy. You don't want the full rated speed of your motor. So the VFD basically will throttle that down. So when you don't need to pump at full capacity, it will vary it from, let's say, 3,600 RPM, you could go down to 800 RPM. So you save that energy. What happens though is some motors are not VFD friendly. So what we do when we repair motors is we use something called an inverter duty wire. What this means is that you increase the capacity of the wire in the motor to tolerate higher temperatures. So when you put a VFD onto a motor, you want to really make sure that that motor could handle the VFD, because of the VFD varying the frequency, what happens is you get higher temperatures in your motor. And if your wire in your motor cannot handle that, you get a lot of failures through burning, right? So that is just something to be aware of when you apply a VFD to a motor. You really want to check that motor and make sure the wire is inverted duty wire. Class H is what we use, which is a very high standard. I think it could take temperatures up to 180 degrees Celsius. Reverse engineering. So I touched on this a bit earlier. So in this picture, for example, you would see an impeller that has been destroyed more or less. And this on the left is one that we've reverse engineered. So what do I mean by reverse engineering? Typically, when you do engineering, you would take your computer software or your calculations and you would manufacture, or you would make a drawing, and then from the engineered drawing, you manufacture. So you normally design and then you manufacture. But in this case, I took a sample and I reverse engineered. So what I did is I got the drawing or the model from the sample. So that is what is meant by reverse engineering. And at Qualitech, we would have various types of equipment, because at the end of the day, the client would want to know how are we sure that we are producing or reproducing the same part from a damaged part. So we would have various things such as 3D laser scanners. We have coordinate measuring machines, which are extremely accurate. So we could actually touch points along the profile of this vein of the impeller to get the geometry and manufacture or make the model online and also test it. So we could actually, in real time, touch points on this impeller, the worn impeller, and see if the model matches it. So in this example here, you would see where we have a damaged one and we manufactured a new one. This one is a little bit more detailed in the sense that this client had a corroded impeller and they actually wanted to upgrade the material to stainless steel. So it'll be more or less lifetime. The reason we do this locally and the customer decided not to go to the OEM or the original equipment manufacturer was because in order to order this, it was taking them something like 8 months for the manufacturer to produce it, whereas we would have manufactured this in 1 month. So there's a significant saving when it comes to time. Sometimes we are very cost effective and similar to the manufacturer because of the size. So if you have very small impellers, the price is almost identical to the original manufacturer's parts, and the time frame is much better. Also, you may ask, how do we know what material this is? So we have special material analyzers that can tell us the chemical composition of this. We can match it to a database, and then we can see, what type of steel it is. So we definitely 100% know what material we're using to get back the same spec as the original equipment manufacturers. And pumps and motors are equipment that have been around for decades. So it's not really rocket science. We've been doing this for 25 years, and we're very, very comfortable doing this. So a lot of multinational companies that are present in Trinidad. In terms of the types of parts we manufacture, we make various pump spares such as shafts, bushings, the column pipes, the impellers, wearings, the discharge head. We've even made strainers. So where you have your suction in your pump, sometimes, as I was discussing with Mr. Jha, you have debris coming in from the rivers or from the holding tanks, and the debris goes up into the impeller and causes damages. We can manufacture strainers to put there to prevent debris from getting lodged inside. This is just a look of what 5-axis machining is, so you can see or get an appreciation for how the impellers are made. We manufacture a lot of different things, like this is a flange, a well-neck flange we would have manufactured, because these things are not available off the shelf because there's such a wide variety of flanges and different pressure ratings. So we manufacture a lot of these, a lot of orifice plates, and we do this using water jet technology. So you may ask, why cut with water? Why not use an oxyacetylene torch or plasma? The beauty about cutting with water is that there's no heat. So when you don't apply heat to metal, you do not alter the material properties. Sometimes you see when you have fabrication works such as welding, the sheet gets warped or bent, and even if you're working with straight pieces of metal such as angle iron or RHS, with a lot of welding, it gets distorted and bent, and also it weakens some of the joints. So that is one of the reasons why we employ or use water jet cutting. So basically it's a high pressure stream of water, 40,000 psi, and an abrasive garnet, which is similar to sand, that gets sucked into the jet stream. So it's a combination of high pressure water and garnet being used. So you can see, for example, a small impeller being cut here, and we would cut all the holes. The beauty about this is that when you do water jet cut, there's very little finishing. So you don't have to spend a lot of time grinding off burrs or sandpaper, using emery to finish it off. It's pretty much very quick. Some of the advantages too is that you can cut very thick material, up to 8 inches thick steel, stainless steel, stone, glass, plastic. Like I mentioned just now, little to no finishing or post-processing, no high temperatures involved, a very high degree of precision and accuracy. And you can cut basically anything you could think about because all the drawings are done in a computer. So if you want to, literally draw a shape, you want to draw a pattern, a design, you can water jet cut that out of any sheet material. Another thing we do that you can extend the life of your equipment with is called abrasion resistant coatings. So what this can do for you is, for example, in pumps, you have things such as if you have, so I'm not specifically talking about water authority type pumps here, but you have other pumps in manufacturing such as slurry pumps. You have pumps that would maybe pump a type of product, maybe like sugar water or salt water that is very harmful to the internals of the pump. These abrasion resistant coatings, when you apply them to the impellers or the case or inside of the pipes, it prevents wear over time. So for example, in the water authorities, you may have large pipes that may suffer what we call wall loss. So over time with water and different chemicals in the water, it actually erodes the internal of the pipe. So the thickness gets thinner, which could lead to holes and then eventually leaks. So abrasion resistant coatings helps prolong the life of these pipes and also the parts inside of the pump. We've had cases where clients would actually send brand new pumps to us to coat them with these abrasion resistant coatings, and they get an extra 5 to 10 years life. What it also does too is that it prevents the internals of the pump or the pipes from getting rough over time. So it maintains a smooth glass-like finish, which helps with the efficiency of the pump, and it also prevents corrosion. So over time, the coating would interact with the medium that is being pumped. So it doesn't actually attack your raw material per se. So basically, you check the pump, you do an inspection, the coating is still good, you continue. If you see signs of the coating wearing, you can just touch it up. So at least the material of the pump itself is not being damaged. You also have different types of coatings. You have rubberized elastomer coatings, which is pretty much like a thin layer of rubber. And you might want to ask, why would you want to do this? For example, if you have something with a coating on it, a hard coating, and you drop a hammer, or let's say you're in the field and you're using your wrench or your spanners, and somebody missteps and it hits the equipment, it cracks the coating, and then you get rusting occurring there. So this rubberized, if you imagine, think about it like a wind ball or a tennis ball. If you throw a tennis ball onto a wall, it bounces back. So if you have a surface that is covered with a rubber, if you hit it with a hammer, it will bounce right off. It won't crack the coating. So that is the principle of operation of rubberized coatings. And a lot of people use it for critical flanges. So you can actually spray this over your flange to prevent the connection from getting corroded. And when you do your inspection, you can just cut the rubber, open it, and then spray it back. So there are different types of coatings for that. And then we also have glass flake epoxy resin. So glass flake is a little bit more intricate, and I just have a slide here to show you how that mechanism operates. So on the left here, this is just regular paint. You get a microscopic crack in your paint. So let's say you just scrape it with your nail, or you hit it with a hammer. You get a very small crack at the start, and over time with heat, the night and day expansion and contraction, the paint cracks, and then you reach the parent material or metal of your equipment. So then you get rusting occurring. The principle of operation of glass flakes is, if you know, or if you can envision what fish food looks like, these flakes here, they're very, very tiny glass flakes, and this is embedded within the paint. So again, here we have cracks on the surface, but as the crack grows, it will encounter these flakes. And once it hits a flake, the crack cannot go any further. So the more flakes, this is a very oversimplified drawing. So I mean, we have spaces here with the flakes, but imagine like all of this was full of flakes. You would see from this last illustration here, when the crack propagated through the paint, it hit one of the flakes, and then it sort of arrested itself right here. Similarly to this crack here, this crack would have grown, and then it would have been arrested by one of the glass flakes here. So you actually, this gray piece here is the metal of your equipment. It doesn't reach so like if you have water or anything coming in, it really protects the surface of your equipment. You'll be surprised to know that these glass flakes are used in, if you have any ladies in the audience, a lot of nail polish. So that the nail polish doesn't crack, they actually utilize glass flake technology in nail polish. That's just an interesting fact. Pictures of what we do. So this is, for example, a large horizontal split pump that would pump salt water. So you can see it's very corroded here. And we would have, sandblasted and cleaned this pump and then applied an epoxy coating so that it will extend the life and prevent wear on the actual body of the pump. So this is what we talk about when we mean epoxy coatings. An example here is on the impeller. So you could actually paint the veins of the impeller and also the volute so that it prevents the actual casing from degrading over time. This is another before and after shot of a large saltwater vertical turbine pump. So you see this is a strainer we could manufacture to prevent debris and other unwanted items from getting sucked in to the pump. So this is all barnacles you would see, and we would disassemble this entire thing and inspect the inside here. So that's just a little sample of the type of work we can do. In terms of repair, sometimes you get pitting on your shaft, as you would see in this first image. And basically, some customers, they decide that they need a new shaft. But the reality is you could actually remove this surface and do what we call metal spraying. So I could actually spray metal onto this. So I remove the pitted, so I remove a certain thickness from the shaft and spray new metal onto this and machine it. So this is what it would look like. So you can see the old shaft and you'll see the repair. So this is actually the same diameter. So I haven't changed the measurement of the shaft. I've just changed the material. One of the nice things about this is when you have like critical spares that would wear over time with bearings, you could actually spray a different metal onto a shaft. So let's say you have a mild steel shaft, you could actually spray stainless steel to make that portion of the shaft a little more hard wearing. So it improves the life of the shaft. These are some equipment we would have procured, a fire water pump, a vertical turbine pump. These would be some heat exchangers, just to give you some perspective in terms of the size of equipment we would deal with. This is a pump from Jamaica. These are some axial split pumps, horizontal split pumps, high pressure multi-stage boiler feed pumps. So in this one in particular, this element of impellers would have, the hair would have been worn and this would have dropped onto the casing. So here we're actually rebuilding with welding all of the different landings to bring it back to the original spec. And here we would machine it back to size. These are some more works on pumps, again, rebuilding worn areas, two portions of the pump, removing the impellers here, manufacturing these skids. So sometimes you get a lot of corrosion with these skids. Some clients have actually invested in stainless steel skids, very expensive, but they don't want the hassle of having to repaint and repair, and then you're having downtime with the equipment. So they've manufactured skids out of stainless steel, so it lasts for lifetime. Impellers, the wearings, all of these things being manufactured. This is one of the larger pumps we'd have done. It weighs about 15 tons. And this is, just to give you some perspective of dimension, is about 56 inches in diameter. So that's just about 6 feet in diameter, just under 6 feet. These would be some gearboxes we'd have repaired over the years. Blasting technologies to clean. So this would be glass bead blasting, winches, a large gearbox for a ship to overhaul. This is a valve actually, one of the large valves on the plants where we are redrilling holes for the flange connection. Automatic filtration for potable water. So this is an automatic backwash filter. So when you have dirty water coming in here, the sieve or the filter, if it gets blocked up with debris, the pressure inside here increases and it initiates a backwash cycle. So all the debris is reverse. So the water flow will change and it will actually wash out all of the debris. So you don't have to keep changing filters all the time. This would be a full package of equipment, a diesel engine, electronic controller, diesel tank, valves, pumps, batteries that we would have supplied and installed for a client. And these are a lot of the different customers we'd have worked with over the years. So a lot of multinational clients, from Norway, America, Canada, Shell, which is, Dutch, Canadian, British Gas. Well, that's no longer there. Shell is, has bought over them. A lot of manufacturers, Nestle, Blue Waters, electrical companies, cement plants, anybody really in the industry. And yeah, that's a bit about what I recommend and some of what Qualitech does. And I open the floor to any questions. Also to note here, this is my my contact number. I didn't have it with 868, which is the Trinidad area code. So you put +1 868 and you put this, and you can always contact me on WhatsApp. And this is my email address in case you have any questions or queries. If you want to follow more about the types of work we do, you can find us online and also on Instagram. This is an old handle here. So the handle is actually Qualitech. So if you search quali.tech on Instagram and Facebook, you will find our page. You can follow and see all the different types of work we've done over the years. So yeah, open the floor up for your questions. Yeah, feel free.
Yes, colleagues, thank you again, Mr. Lall, for a very comprehensive and concise presentation as well. I mean, I think you went through and there are lots of useful information for all our operators. And we now invite you to post your questions in the chat, or you can unmute and ask the questions directly to Mr. Lall.
Hi, afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not really a question, but it's more like a confirmation of what they're doing. We actually do wastewater treatment at one of the oil and gas companies that they do work for. That's PPGPL.
Right.
And so, yeah, and so what happened is that one of the submersible wastewater pumps, on the design, there's one of the parts that the OEM representative in Trinidad did not have. And so we needed it's like a second strainer on the suction. And so there's one strainer that allows probably like around 2 inches of debris. And then there's another strainer, probably polyurethane, that goes before it hits the impellers. And so one of the strainers got lost. And so the client didn't want the pump inside operating like that. So we had us to get it 3D printed. And so I carried the existing one that they had in laid down yard. I carried it, got it 3D printed, and it was well done. So
this is at Qualitech?
Yeah, Qualitech. Yeah, Qualitech.
Okay.
Yeah, PPGPL only use any work that as far as pumps, motors, and that kind of stuff. Qualitech does the work. So us being a service provider there, and the equipment was down. Even the regenerative blowers, they do the work there also, and it was pretty well done.
Okay, I appreciate the comments, Devin. Which company are we doing?
We are multi-industrial and utility, but we with our Phoenix Park gas processors.
Okay, all right, nice. Well, thanks
Sure.
for that feedback. And I mean, if you want to just ask any questions, even if it's off topic of the presentation, it's fine. General engineering questions, advice, feel free. It could be career-wise, it could be, doesn't have to be specific to
Yeah,
pumps.
many of them are, many of the participants here are also preparing for, on taking some of the Association of Boards of Certification exams, and they're always useful tips about pumps, and you have an expert there, so you can always get some good advice as you prepare for your exams.
Yeah, one thing I could probably comment on is with the use of VFDs. I know VFDs now, they're sort of when I attended CWWA conference in, I think it was in Jamaica, there was a it was actually St. Kitts. There was a presentation by one of the technology experts at ABB, and they have technology now with the VFDs where they can throttle the speed of the pumps. So sometimes now they actually remove the valve completely. So depending on what flow you need, you either shut off the pump or you run the pump at a slower speed. So it like to eliminate valves, I thought that was interesting when they presented on that. So that could kind of tie in with the future of water industry. I'll just cycle through the presentation in case it jogs any questions. I think we have one in the chat here, or thank you actually, or thank you, Anderson, for your comments.
Okay, well, you seem to have been very pellucid with your presentation, Mr. Lall, so I don't seem to have any questions.
Any from you, Jean?
Well, I don't have any myself. Just like to thank you very much for coming in and giving us some valuable information. As usual, we are recording this and we will put it up on our site for the benefit of some of those who couldn't make it, because sometimes some of the operators get mixed up around this time of the day.
Right.
And they can always make reference to it. It's like building up a good knowledge bank as well.
Right.
And of course, because it's on YouTube, you will get some of the plug as well when people come to our site. So much appreciated, and like to thank everyone for participating.
Yeah, no trouble at all. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, and let's keep in touch. Thank you very much.
All right, take care.
And okay, and keep safe, everyone, and well.
Yes, keep safe.
Okay, yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.